Well, what a week. What a week.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been one long week of just one thing after the other, and it has in a way. But when I was looking back over to sort of introduce the show, we will, of course, be talking mostly about the assassination of Charlie Kirk in the US on Wednesday. But it seemed like there was so much else going on around it. For me, it felt like these world events happened consecutively all week long. In fact, they actually happened just in the first 3 days of last week, and everything since then has been the fallout from these things, not just with the assassination in the US, but in the Middle East and even in the Russia-Ukraine situation. So Monday, this isn't really an event, but you do wonder because the event in question didn't happen that day. It happened a couple of weeks earlier in August. But Monday, the footage of the savage slashing the neck of that Ukrainian refugee girl in Charlotte in North Carolina was published. So it went viral, prompting massive dumpster fire of revulsion and heated discussion online about what to do about the problem. And it was a big deal because even Trump actually kind of made a quasi-formal TV address that evening and talking about his war on crime and so on. That was Monday. So people had, at least in the Anglosphere social media discussions, that was on everyone's mind, the visuals of that too, right? Israel, from just Monday through Wednesday, bombed Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Tunisia, probably. We can discuss that because two of the Gaza flotilla boats were droned with something like an incendiary device. They bombed Gaza, of course, and then it culminated in bombing Qatar, which was a new thing because Qatar is basically an Israel-like ally, you know, the Abraham Accords and all that. So they crossed the line there. That was a new development. They attempted but failed to take out the Hamas delegation there. That was Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. No, they did that on Wednesday, I think. Same day as the assassination. Just before. Anyway, Tuesday night, this didn't really get the attention it might have in another week, but Tuesday night was when the massive wave of Russian drones flew into Poland.
Massive wave.
I know, it's such a farce. And then they've stopped talking about it. But at the time they were trying to, we could see they were trying to gin up, you know, trigger NATO Article 5.
And then yesterday in Romania.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that. Again, they're trying to give this thing legs, eh? Then, of course, Kirk was assassinated Wednesday. Wednesday was also the day. It was the climax of what was taking place in Nepal, because the government fled on Wednesday. Fled if they could because it was full on lynched them all, chased them out of power revolution. This was relatively small fry, but historically it's of interest. On Tuesday, the French government was formally collapsed by a vote of no confidence in Macron's fourth or fifth prime minister, followed by mass protests on the streets, which haven't really bitten in the way that some thought they might, like the Yellow Vest Rebellion.
Well, it hasn't started. It starts on the 18th.
Okay, there's another protest next week.
No, that's the main one, is on the 18th.
Okay. And strikes and so on. But yeah, so that was all just packed into the top of last week. About a crazy few days. So, yeah. The assassination of Kirk. We know lots. I mean, maybe we should consider who we're speaking to. When you're online, you assume everyone else in your bubble or knows what you're talking about. But we know people who went, oh, this is sad. Who was Charlie Kirk? So, for those who don't know, well, you do by now, you have some idea, but it is hard to pin down exactly because he was kind of like a close aide to Trump. He was frequently in the White House, but he had no formal brief. He wasn't actually a politician. He wasn't actually a civil servant. The closest thing you could say his formal position was that he had a Turning Point USA political activist organization, which has a big budget by now, big sponsors, more on that later. which I suppose is akin to MAGA youth. And when and where he was shot was going on to the open grounds of a campus of a university and having a debate back and forth with questions from the crowd of students. Because it's the top of the year, I imagine they were mostly like in their first year in college or something. So kids. This is how he himself started out. He was 12 when he was involved in Republican politics and in school himself. Founded Turning Point USA when he was only 18, and has been killed now just at the age of 31. So he was close to Trump. He was close enough to Trump that we now know from Candace Owens in her eulogy to him, because they were close as friends and political allies of such. For example, that when Candace spoke earlier this year and said that she got a call from the White House on behalf of the president asking, could you please stop talking about whether or not the president of France's wife is in fact a man, that call came from Charlie Kirk. So close to Trump, you could see Trump was personally affected by it. He knew him well enough that he would have been a frequent visitor to the White House. So it's not like trying to assassinate Trump, but it's definitely trying to assassinate someone close to Trump. It's personal for them, I suppose, as well as just political. And he's a household name in the US. I think that's fair to say. Not just an internet personality. So that's why there was such a outcry when it happened in the US. Everyone there would have known who he is. So right off the bat, that the images, the very first image I saw wasn't the shots fired. It was a photo of the guy on his knees with the caption that they've caught him. They've caught the guy who shot Charlie Kirk. Mm-hmm. And he's confessed. Oh, okay. Well, let's open a shut.
That was the first thing you saw?
I think so, yeah. It was a photo of a guy who we now know is George Zinn, the old fella. And so the first thing was like, oh, some boomer libtard has...
That wasn't the first time you came across the idea that Charlie Kirk had been shot, though.
The first post I saw was, this is him, this is the guy who did it, I think.
Really?
Yeah. And then you sent me video of Kirk being shot. And I was like, okay, that wasn't, because the reason I even mentioned that at all, because it meant that wrapped in my first impression of it was somebody standing close to the stage, pulling out a handgun and shooting him. Because a boomer, he's not exactly going to be able to handle a high-powered rifle and get a good aim and so on. But then you sent me a video file of the shot, and we both went, well, that's a high-powered rifle. That's not the old guy. Sure enough, the old guy is a weird story because he's one of two suspects that were immediately arrested and then released. But there's footage of him being led away from the university saying, shoot me, shoot me. And he had apparently made a statement to them confessing that he did it. And a superior to the arresting officer came and said, later made a statement that he was told by the guy who was arresting him, yeah, he says he did it, but I'm not sure I believe him. And that's weird. I mean, you got weirdos who will do weird things, but that's quite a thing because remember, there's also footage of him being walked away and there's people are baying for blood. I mean, he could have been lynched, Anyway, that guy, turns out his name is George Zinn, and he's known in Utah, Salt Lake and surrounds for being always someone who always turns up at political anything. Is he a Democrat? I guess he is. Yeah. He's probably a lefty. If you're that involved in politics, you're a lefty. And he's got a weird backstory because he claims that on 9/11 that he claims there's footage of him being interviewed or something, that he knew right away as soon as the towers were hit that Al-Qaeda did it. That's a bit okay. And that on the morning of the Boston bombings in 2013, this random political activist called in tip in Salt Lake City warning that he knew bombs would be placed there at the head of a marathon in that city. Was then arrested for it, arrested or questioned. No, he just made it up. Okay. Very, very strange. But since then, I mean, it's pretty open. I think it's open to shut. There is a lot of, there's a lot of back and forth about whether I've seen some crazy stuff taking place. Well, no, the shot was really fired from his right, from one of his bodyguards. I think people are starting to see things, and there's distraction and confusion being piled into it now, but it's pretty open to shut now that the shot was fired from above, where the sniper could be seen. Almost directly in front of him. That guy, is it strange that it took 36 hours? Trump's praising the FBI for managing to find the culprit in 33 hours, but that was a long day when there was nothing. Because I think we've become accustomed to perpetrators, lone wolves or otherwise. Like, it obviously reminded people of Butler last year. Well, he was taken out right away. So
by someone behind him.
But here there was a gap, a yawning gap of we don't know who or where. And in that gap, I'm telling you, I'm not saying this is planned this way. This is just my impression, my read of what happened last week. In that gap of a day, again, it could be because of my bubble on my feed, because of who I follow and the kinds of things I'm into and so on. But I was overwhelming. I wouldn't say, I can't categorically say most people were saying this, but the largest dissident set of angles or suspicions were immediately cast on Israel / the deep state. I did not expect that. Like,
it's an important distinction, though, like the Israel / the deep state. You know.
How do you mean?
Well, is it one or the other, you know? Or are they both the same?
I thought we spent most of the summer painstakingly working out that they're essentially the same thing.
Don't know.
We don't know.
Okay. Don't know. I don't know if we painstakingly. I don't know if there's any evidence to prove that. Let's say that we could have presented, but yeah, it's just murky for me. It's I mean, you have to be. Depends what perspective you're coming from. But if you spent long enough looking at how politics, different events throughout particular American, but other countries' political history and all that kind of stuff, even going back to JFK and all that kind of stuff, you look at JFK, apparently the vast majority of people, a significant majority, I don't know what the actual number is, but of Americans, when polled, didn't believe that the story about JFK, and didn't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald killed him.
At the time, or more recent decades?
Since.
Yeah, agreed.
And I find it hard to understand how those people, again, I don't know how many people believe this, or what perspective the majority of people have. It's very hard to know. Obviously, there's too many people, like a few billions anyway, right? So it's hard to know what everybody thinks. But the fact that a majority of people in the US would, for example, not believe the JFK official story, and that by definition implies some secretive group within the government, somewhere within the government, within one of the agencies of the government, the FBI, CIA, within the government itself, outside of the government, but working with agencies within the government, who knows, some kind of cabal actually killed JFK for their own purposes and pinned it on Lee Harvey Oswald. Well, if they could do that in 1963, then that was like 60 years ago. Surely they can still do it today, and have only got better at doing that kind of thing. So and that's deep state, but then that leaves aside Israel. You know what I mean? So Israel would be separate from that in a certain sense. But to talk about Israel deep state, you're talking about, you know, the extent to which Israel has influence within the US and what its actual agenda is, how much Israel is actually quote unquote Israel. Like, because when you say, like, people use terms like Israel, who do you mean? Bibi Netanyahu himself? You know, that's the problem. There's a lack of specificity to the terms people use. You know,
Well,
people use them and then don't actually say what they mean, if you know what I mean. Or I mean, which is understandable because it's hard to actually define who these people are and stuff. But when you say, like, a lot of people, you're saying Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Who's Israel?
They would all have it's a broad church of takes on what that means.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Super broad. But anyway, what fascinates me is that the day one, so in the gap, so that's probably all late Thursday. That's all I was seeing.
People saying Israel / deep state.
Yeah.
Just super broad.
There's been a major pushback.
You may as well just say they instead of that term.
Yeah.
It's the quintessential amorphous, unknown they, you know.
But it prompted people to pull up, probably spurred by those who'd been following Kirk and what he'd been saying in recent weeks and months, to pull up a ton of circumstantial evidence that Kirk, whose big sponsors I mentioned earlier, were Zionists, and Kirk, who is attacked from the right and any dissenting voice, the left too, because of his stance in the intervening years since October 7th in being favor of being a stalwart defender of what Israel's doing to Gaza. And he has been. You can definitely find the whole track record for that. But you also find in the recent weeks and months,
him changing
his tune in a big way, like to the extent of that clip of him on his show. He had a daily show as well, basically saying this is almost verbatim, powerful secular Jews are ultimately the driving force behind mass immigration into the United States to weaken national unity. That's pretty much what he said. You can't get any more like on the nose than that, you know. Well, this isn't just a random podcaster either. Well, it's like I said, $500 million worth in that
it's
TP USA.
$500 million worth what from?
That was the size of their budget of. As of now, that's how much it grew.
But where did that come from? We don't know. We're not saying that
everyone's talking about sponsors. Someone who I think Candace owns is probably going to start naming names, but I'm pretty sure Miriam Adelson's one of them.
Right, so he was being funded by his organization, being funded by Israeli interests, and then he was also he had maybe started to turn away from those interests and started criticizing their sacred cows. Let's say. I mean, you talk about being on the nose in immigration. He's basically saying that there's powerful Jewish interests basically encouraging illegal immigration into the US. But I mean, he said worse than that, and it depends on how you perceive it. But you could say that there's other things are even more egregious in terms of turning the Israelis against him, like this one. This one on his comments on the October 7th attack on Israel.
I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say, stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and buy...
So it's interesting that was that's almost 2 years ago. So you're talking about a few months. It's obviously longer than that he's had. He's been a kind of free thinker. So had.
That's why I disagree with that. Yeah.
Messages that he, so this wasn't a spur of the moment thing like, oh, Charlie's been our man for so long, and then in the last month he started saying, Israel, I don't like them so much anymore. And they went, okay, kill him. It's obviously 2 years ago when he's questioning. And also it undermines, I don't think he's a rational person. I suppose maybe people can hold two very opposing ideas in their mind at the same time, but certainly wouldn't espouse both of them, I don't think. So I don't think, maybe he fell in the line or something.
Oh yeah.
And felt that he had to say, Hamas are terrorists and that kind of stuff. But obviously 2 years ago, right after this happened, he was questioning the entire rationale for the war on Gaza, and basically quite blatantly suggesting that it was a false flag operation. In a certain sense, what the Israelis let it happen on purpose in order to justify. But I mean, once you start down that road, then the whole thing is false. You cannot support or justify what Israel is doing against people in Gaza at all. You have to see it as a cynical move designed specifically to provide the justification to slaughter Palestinians. There's
in your mind, in your mind.
Well,
but if you're in the political arena, you have to say both things, or you have to walk back things, or you have to go kiss the wall.
Yeah,
this is what.
But he didn't do that. But he didn't do that though. That's the thing. He didn't do that.
He didn't kiss the wall.
No, he
didn't.
He'd been
to Israel many times before, but yes.
But I don't think he did that. What I'm saying is, I think his the past 2 years he's been increasingly. I mean, he knew what was going on, and he's probably one of the few genuine America firsters, let's say, as opposed to an Israel firster. At least in his mind, and he was moving increasingly in that direction. There's another one here where he speaks also on the Israeli issue.
If Bibi Netanyahu, if he does something I don't like, and if I criticize it, am I like a bad Christian?
Absolutely not.
What I find strange is that we're able to criticize the American government sometimes in the Christian world with more freedom than the Israeli government. To be pro-Israel means you believe in the nation of Israel, not necessarily the government of Israel. When Joe Biden was president, you and I we loved America, but we detested our government. And those two things beautifully coexisted.
Yeah, you never once said, "Hey, I'm out on
America."
On
of
America,
course it was the opposite.
Exactly.
And what they don't want is they don't want to be called bad Christians if they challenge a foreign government, which is what happens so often.
Right.
Like, you're a bad Christian if you have a question about a foreign government.
Right.
That creates backlash that I don't think people understand.
So that kind of maybe explains, a bit more nuance where he's actually coming from, because of his faith and his belief in being a Christian and stuff. A Judeo-Christian, more specifically, we have to assume he held to that idea that Israel, Judeo-Christianity, Israel was, the Bible, the Old Testament. Israel has a right to exist, but so his issue is with corrupt politicians or corruption in politics. So he could only see that far, but he couldn't come away because he was right up until the end quite outspoken about his Christian beliefs and his Christian faith, which for someone that came in America obviously tends to include Israel as the promised land and homeland for the Jewish people, and the Christian God is Yahweh, the God of the Jews, and so you got to be all on board with all of that. But he allows himself to criticize specific governments, the Israeli government. So he's trying to make that distinction. He's making that distinction there. But that in itself would would put him on the outs. You know what I mean? That's still not enough. That's not good enough. If you're going, we know that it's anti-Semitic or antiseptic.
Oh, the ADL said as much
to criticize
Israel.
Israel.
Said as much in late August about him, and Carlson. But they'd already thrown that charge at Carlson by then. But they threw it at him for the first time, I think, in August. And he went on Megyn Kelly's show, and the two of them had a heart-to-heart on this issue, because I think she was getting it too, because she started criticizing the genocide for the first time. And they were both like, they were outraged that we've been so supportive all this time, and now you're calling me an anti-Semite. We more or less said F you on the Megyn Kelly show. That was...
Yeah, it's that ridiculous idea that, you know, if you criticize the Israeli government, you're anti-Semitic, you hate the Jews. It's like the Israeli government is a transitory, you know, every 5 years, whatever, group of people, group of Jews. Okay, but if you disagree with their policies, say a government comes into power in Israel and they want to, let's say, destroy the state of Israel. Are you anti-Semitic for criticizing those people for wanting to destroy the state of Israel?
Or are you anti-Semitic for agreeing with that policy?
You're both. Double anti-Semitism. So the whole thing's ridiculous. Like it actually, at this point, I'm amazed that it has any traction. It has any effect. It's bizarre. It's like a really negative commentary on the state of people's minds and the state of discourse and culture, where these Israeli groups, Israeli lobby groups, etc., the ADL and AIPAC and all this kind of thing, and different individual pro-Israelis or actual Jews can actually turn around and say that it's anti-Semitic to criticize
Netanyahu's coalition,
a government in Israel, and that you have to actually spell it out and go like, that's ridiculous. Why would you even say that? These are individuals who may or may not be working in the interest of Israel. If they're not working in the interest of Israel, the Israeli people, and the future of the Israeli state, like if they're imperiling the Israeli people and or the Jews in Israel, and if they're imperiling the existence of the Israeli state, then they're the ones who are anti-Semitic. Not that anti-Semitism is such a stupid term these days. It's overused and means nothing at this point, but they're the ones who are doing that, and they should be criticized for that if you support Israel. You know, if, like, I don't know, Hitler came to power in Israel and wanted to kill all the Jews, I mean, should you criticize him because are you anti-Semitic because this Hitler president, this guy called Hitler, who's the president of Israel, well, he's the Israeli president, so if you say anything about the Israeli president, Israeli prime minister, then that's anti-Semitic. Yeah, but he wants to kill all the Jews. It doesn't matter. Shut your mouth. Criticizing the Israeli president.
Banned,
prime minister,
censored, deported.
So it's just so stupid that for me, like, the fact that you even have to talk about that speaks to how mind-numbingly ignorant so many people are, who they think they actually have to grapple with that. It's basically like saying, like, you know, the sky is green, and if you disagree with me, you're going to prison. It's like, all right, well, if you're going to send me to prison, I won't disagree with you, okay? But I'm not going to say the sky's green, because it's fucking not, like, you know, I mean, no, we're not even going to have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
No, say the sky's green or you're going to prison.
Say the line.
You know what? I'm just going to leave, because this conversation is so ridiculous that it doesn't even warrant anybody even.
But if you leave
at all,
you're banned from politics. Period.
You don't get to stay on the grift and have a position and have notoriety and have an income, I suppose, or the income that you had. So, but then people are selling their souls for that. Then, you know, people should just walk away. Like, at this point, they should just walk away from everything. You know, I mean, that's the only rational response at this point, is to walk away from it. It doesn't mean you can't stop talking about it, but as long as you talk about it in those terms of everybody on YouTube and all the influencers and all that kind of stuff that have any sense left should all be just repeatedly saying on the shows, like, everybody just walk away from this. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Everything is wrong. Everything is ridiculous. It's gone so far down the tubes that it is pointless to even discuss it, and just try and get as many people as possible to understand that and get them all to walk away.
Yeah. So kind of like a Brexit.
A boycott the whole fucking thing. Boycott the ridiculous. Yeah, boycott the whole thing, because it's so fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so inane and so anti-intellectual
It's psychopathic.
that you shouldn't even bother associating yourself with it, except this to the extent of pointing that out. It's just a stupid food fight, you know? And some people enjoy it. And there's so many people who are just doing it for the grift. Like Tommy Robinson is an example of someone who's doing it for the grift, you know?
Oh, Tommy.
And that's another thing that's happened this week.
Tommy.
Unite the Kingdom.
Unite the Kingdom protests. And
It was a big turnout, though.
sure, yeah. But that just shows you how many stupid people there are. And, you know, on the one hand, I can understand them, but at the same time, if they had any more sense, they would actually just walk away. They wouldn't be involved in that. But they can't find it within themselves to grasp that. Like Tommy's... and Elon Musk showed up. You talk about like your idols falling or something like that, you know. Elon Musk was there. They're talking about, you know, fight. He was basically giving the message of fight or die, right? It's time, fight or die type thing. And Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, has criticised him for saying such an inflammatory thing. But talking about Tommy Robinson being a grifter, here's it's super funny. Like here he is at a part of that rally type thing. Somebody actually accidentally recorded Tommy behind the scenes at this protest saying something that probably shouldn't surprise you.
What?
I scroll up to see what he said. He said,
Scroll up there, Scotty.
He said somewhere gear, bruv. He's ordering more cocaine.
Oh,
The Unite the Union, and see, it's just guilty look on his face there whenever he play it again, when he sees that someone's actually recording him.
Oh, okay.
He's like, anyway, carry on. That guy's just a grifter. He's just in it for the.
But that thing that happened to him in Canada was like, oh Jesus! There are a lot of people who just overlook it because it's a sign of the times. It's why such people's star is rising or popularity is growing. Everyone knows he's a cokehead who absolutely has to binge on hookers and coke whenever he's even on tour to give lectures to students about how they can live better lives and save the white race and stuff. It's like, obviously he's not a moral person. Why are you... And people who do see it up close do walk away and they say, this is what happened when we tried to organize this. The one I have in mind is he was in Canada last year or earlier this year. It went down as Tommy was arrested for no reason and kicked out because his passport was out of date or something like that, or he had the wrong immigration or visa for a visit or something. But we now know from someone, the local woman who helped organize his tour for talking at various venues in Canada, that what actually happened was he went on a bender. He knew a guy who has an Indian restaurant in Toronto, and they went on a bender. Then finished in a brothel, loads of coke, and they were supposed to give a talk. He was supposed to talk the next day, and it was obviously cancelled. But to kind of cover up or distract from it, he himself suggested they contrive this issue and get himself arrested and deported from Canada. So there you go. I was just kicked out for no reason. No. So literally a grifter, but anyhow.
Anyway, back to Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk wasn't that.
Charlie shot by dude Tyler Robinson. Catch him a day later, a day and a half later, whatever. Initial reports that his father was a cop. Then he wasn't a cop. He owned a kitchen installing business or something
Yeah.
like that. And supposedly in a relationship with a transgender.
I think that's shaping up.
In some kind of a relationship, let's say,
roommate,
like
at
in a
least.
relationship, roommate, whatever, friends
Yeah.
with a dude who was transitioning into a girl, but who hadn't really transitioned and just was like a girly looking dude. So maybe it was just his best friend.
Well, at least according to the stuff that Andy No has put together, like he found video of one of the neighbors who saw them kissing within the last 2 weeks. And then there was someone else saying that in the lead up to this, they've been seeing some shady looking people going to and fro from the apartment.
Yeah, in cars with no plates or something.
Foreign plates.
Foreign plates.
And Andy put together all of the social media, profiles of this roommate / potential
lover, boyfriend,
girlfriend thing. And I mean, it's obviously that person, because in some of the profiles of them where he has the comments, there's also pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, like, okay, so this is probably this guy talking about, for example, taking hormones and how difficult that is. And so it seems to be that there actually is something there.
Yeah. The point is, I don't know. Again, it depends on your perspective, but I mean, this is one of a long list of shootings, politically motivated shootings by, apparently politically motivated shootings by, let's say,
the trans death cult.
Not only that, but like going back over the years, like by young, and not always young, but quite often young men, young guys who, you know, disaffected or whatever. Well, you have to assume they're disaffected because they just went and shot a bunch of people or shot one person or whatever.
Yeah.
Mental people.
That there's something wrong with them, or they're in some way disaffected. So again, it just, you either decide that, oh look, this country's going down the tubes, why is this happening, and people going to like gun control and all that kind of stuff, taking the guns away because that's the problem. But then other people are a bit more intelligent, I suppose, saying that, well, obviously there's malaise in society where this kind of thing happens and stuff, you know. But to really understand, I think anybody with any sense, or anybody looking at it more objectively rather than just going after the kind of like the hot button ideas of gun control or mental health or something like that, you'd have to look at go back probably quite a long time to and start looking again at the idea of cointelpro, counterintelligence programs run by intel agencies, most notably in the 60s and 70s, where the FBI, CIA, etc. would infiltrate like Black Panther groups in the US. Like the basic idea being that the job of intel agencies or the government or whatever, or security services in any country, is to keep the country safe from threats, internal threats, defenses for external.
Specifically to prevent the overthrow of the government.
Well, or just any kind of social...
To offset revolutionary...
Well, not just that. That's
so
one end of the
counter-revolution.
Yeah. Counterintelligence.
Counterinsurgency.
Yeah, but counterinsurgency is more about war, it was active war. This is the job of internal security services to catch bad guys, basically. It's part of crime prevention, right? So you're talking about any group that would in some way threaten to, or would seem to be poised to threaten or tending to threaten social order. That's the job, right? So it's fairly mundane, straight up, understandable. The problem is that the process of doing that gets very, very murky and complicated and depending on the people doing it, like the members of the intel agencies doing it, and the people above them, and what their intentions are, it can get quite convoluted and taken to a illogical extreme. Let's say, can end up with them doing or achieving the opposite of what they intended, although in their minds it's still in line with their purpose of controlling society. Let's say keeping control of society. So basically, it starts off, like I said, with some groups that you identify as being potential threat to society. Intelligence agencies or authority, security services of whatever stripe will infiltrate those organizations. They'll pose as members, I want to join, and then they can be there for quite a long time. And their goal would be to, if they can achieve it, their goal would be to at least become an important part of that organization, let's say. Not necessarily the leader of it or whatever, but certainly within the higher ranks of it. And the rationale being that that's how we can best keep tabs on what they may be planning to do. So it's all very rational, right? And even direct the course of what they're trying to do and stop them from doing some things that would be would be bad for society. There's some kind of curveballs that get thrown into it, though, because, for example, with the FBI or any other agency like that, especially a government agency, their job is they have a remit for protecting society in this way, but they also have to show that they're being successful, that they're actually achieving something, right? Or even more so, they have to show that the threat that they are tasked with confronting actually exists. And if that threat doesn't exist, then you can see how it might, when they start thinking about it, go, well, look, there's not really a lot happening here with this group. But we know they would do something if they, if we weren't keeping tabs on them, let's say. And the problem is that if nothing happens, if there doesn't seem to be a threat within the country from this group or any other kinds of group, well, then our budget, the rationale for us continuing as an agency of this size starts to come into question. And Congress will kind of turn around and go, well, so there doesn't seem to be much of a threat here. Why do we need like 100,000 FBI agents? Maybe we only need 50,000, so we're going to cut your budget by 50%. And there's vested interest within the FBI who don't want that to happen. Then so you can see how their minds would slowly or quickly turn to the idea of, well, look, there needs to be some evidence of there being a threat to society. And if these groups aren't actually up to doing it, then maybe we need to do it ourselves. And we can justify it by saying, well, they would do it. It's just that we need to lead them along in a certain sense to really tease it out of them, you know what I mean? Because they're a bit incompetent, so we need to kind of go, come on, look here.
No, exactly. So they would do it and they will do it. You just have to coach them. You have to tell them how to do it. You have to give them the things to do it, and they will do it.
Right.
So,
and this was seen, and so this is going on for decades, basically, since the 60s and 70s, or even beforehand. But it was seen most obviously and dramatically in the last 20 some years with, and there's been mainstream media reports. You can look them up. We'll put them in the show notes, whatever. But mainstream media reports talking about FBI terror plots and how however many hundreds, I think, of terror plots over the past 20 years, so-called FBI terror plots, that the FBI solved or caught, were actually pretty much all of them were concocted by the FBI themselves. I mean, I think it was the New York Times actually did a report on it, a big story on it, like those FBI terror plots. Most of them were actually done by most of them were, the source of them was the FBI itself, i.e. the FBI would go along, find some disenchanted or maladjusted person or group of people in society living on their own, probably often low IQ or mental health issues. And in one case, there's one I talked about and did a little video on back in the day called the Miami 7. It was a group of guys living in Miami in a warehouse. One of them was autistic, another one had physical disabilities and stuff. they were engaged in martial arts and all that kind of stuff, and they called themselves the Seas of David or whatever. They were Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, evangelical, Rastafarian or something like that. That was their and they, you know, they had some crazy ideas about what they were going to do.
And they were the last kings of Scotland.
Last kings of Scotland. And,
no, I made that part up.
Yeah, but something along those lines, you know. And so they're all a bit, you know, mentally on the edge type thing. And they had some ideas about, you know, how they were going to solve the country's problems and stuff. So an FBI, what do you call it? Not agent, but
informant.
An informant, basically working for the FBI, goes in, joins them, and says, "So what are we going to do?" You know, and eventually gives them money, gives them supplies. Eventually suggests that they might want to join Al Qaeda. Then swears them an oath, swears them into Al Qaeda, and then suggests to them that they want to wage a full ground war on the US. And they said, we don't have any boots, so we need boots to do that, right? So he gets them some boots and stuff, and then suggests to them also that they want to blow up the Sears Tower. And so that's one obvious example, but there was many other examples of the FBI going through the same process with individuals, just encouraging them to become part of Al Qaeda or some kind of terrorist group or whatever, or some kind of right-wing group, whatever, up to the point of giving them fake guns or fake explosives, and encouraging them to go and blow up some place with this fake explosive. And then the day the guy shows up with his little carrier bag of fake explosives given to him by the FBI agent, the FBI jumps out and says, "Gotcha, FBI terror plot solved." But from start to finish, the whole thing was basically, it would never have happened without the FBI's involvement. And that's all about justifying budgets, let's say, and justifying their existence. Like, look how great we are, we solved all these terror plots. And spreading the idea that there's a threat to the homeland, right, and keeping people on tenterhooks. So you can see how if then the philosophy, if there were some kind of an idea or ideology within the FBI or behind the FBI, whatever, or as a part of the FBI but not working in the official FBI, were also involved in this kind of thing, but their goal was to actually allow certain terror attacks or shootings, etc., to actually take place. Because it's only so, if your goal is social engineering and creating a sense of, you know, ultimately you see the people starting to question Israel or whatever, or starting to question the government, or start to question, in some way go off track in the way that you would like to keep society, off the track that you'd like to keep society on. Because you've become corrupted yourself and you've become pathological and your drive for power and control has just taken over, you would start to see the people as the enemy if they start going off track, and you want to put them back on track. You know, it's about social control, social engineering. You see the people of the country as your enemy. Well, then you would start to manipulate them and terrorize them and create this strategy of tension, let's say, between different groups within society by using the same process that they were well practiced in, of manipulating some person to go and do something that attacks one group and then sets it against the other. Right? It's like, it's very prosaic, the whole thing. It's very rational. I'm not saying I have evidence that that's actually happened. We have lots of evidence that the FBI have gone through all of these terror plots and all that kind of stuff. But the next step beyond that of allowing it to happen, not catching the guy when he's going to plant the bomb, but rather giving him a real bomb, or encouraging him to go and shoot a real person with a real gun. And then on the day that he goes to do it, that it's all calculated and set up to do, you just walk away. You take your hands off and let it happen. And you can see how in the minds of those people that would be justified to serve certain ends, because it really is only one step away from catching him or letting him do it. So when you realize that that's a reality and that has actually happened and it is happening all the time and has been happening for a very long time, not just in the US but in other countries, it puts events like the shooting of Charlie Kirk in a different perspective. You don't just go, oh, some disenchanted or angry transgender loving young 20-something-year-old kid who was angry because Charlie Kirk said, "I love Jesus, I'm going to shoot him." You know what I mean? That there's America in particular is clearly on a bit of a knife edge with this right versus left thing. And if your goal had evolved if you're from the point of view of the government or some agencies within the government, if their goal had evolved to very clearly creating tension within different ideological
Strategy of tension.
Yeah, creating tension within ideological groups within society, then in one way or another manipulating a guy like Tyler Robinson to go and carry out the shooting, and in some way facilitating it to happen, maybe giving him safe passage to there, giving him a gun, whatever, under the guise of, you know, a brother in arms type thing, you know, like I'm on your side. Like, you're not talking about, hi, I'm the FBI, here's a gun, go and shoot Charlie Kirk. No, it's like an FBI informant or members of the FBI acting as mentors to this kid who also are very pro transgender rights and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And part of the evidence for that is, so it'd be hard to, it's always going to be hard to find the evidence on the institutional side, but on the social side, everyone saw it. If on the first 24 hours, the main thing we saw was the blink of so many people going, they did it. The follow-up was, we all saw it even on our mostly conservative right-wing feeds, all the instances of lefties going, awesome, let's keep going. There's a shitload more people we want to kill. So what I'm saying is that there's plenty of material out there for institutional manipulators to pick from.
Yeah, exactly. But you could, it also makes the argument, the other side of the argument, which is that this just is an organic thing amongst young, angry, you know, lefty type individuals who will just pick up a gun and go and shoot people, right? But I think my take on it is that there's a lot of people who shout on Twitter and on the internet and scream bloody murder and say that somebody should take this person out, but you know, it's always somebody should do this, because most of the people talking that way
actually
do not have the balls to do it themselves. Don't have the wherewithal, the skills, or the balls to do it themselves. There's very, very few people who would be in a position to go ahead and do that, you know. I think, you know, and not just do it, not have the balls to do it, but actually have the wherewithal to do it and carry it out effectively, and then disappear and not get caught and all that kind of stuff. Because it's almost like it's a contradiction in terms, in a certain sense, because somebody who's messed up enough, psychologically messed up enough, just of their own, you know, in a normal way, to actually want to go through with killing Charlie Kirk, for example, you could argue that they probably wouldn't be very good at carrying it out. Some average 21, 22, 23, whatever year old kid who might have shot a few guns at the gun range, whatever, but is now going to plan the whole thing, you know, surveil the whole area, find out when Charlie Kirk is going to be there, time it all perfectly, get up on the roof, get off a perfect shot,
know where his talk's going to be.
Know where it's going to be
on the campus.
Yeah. And even the weird, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything to this, but the weird fact that the question Charlie Kirk was asked before he was shot, like, you know, do you know how many mass shootings have been in the USA in the last 10 years? And he said, well, do you mean
gang or non-gang?
Gang or non-gang? And he shot, like, literally that was the question before he was shot. Yeah. I mean, that's something else. Maybe that's a bit too weird. But anyway, I think there's
just the fact it was one shot.
Yeah, just being
and clean and hitting the neck.
Yeah, just being rational about it. That kid, like, that's why people have this contradiction where it's like, it looks like a professional hit.
Yeah.
But it's some crazy kid.
Yeah. And no one's buying
crazy, off the wall, transgender kid generally doesn't, the two don't go together, you know what I mean? When you think of professional hit, you think of cold-blooded killer, trained professional, sniper, military, you know. You don't think of, you know, the blue-haired person screaming, not my president. You know, being able to carry out an assassination with such effectiveness.
So one of the things that crosses my mind in instances like this is, like, me specifically, you know, I've had a rifle, I've shot it quite a bit, and I've shot it at a couple hundred yards. It is not easy to do for me, even under the most, like, benign conditions, because I don't have the steadiest hand. So if you were to put me in that situation, my heart is pounding so hard, I wouldn't hit like the tent that Charlie was in.
Never mind his jugular vein.
Never mind, like, get close enough to his head to bounce to ricochet the bullet accidentally off of his body armor and get him in the neck.
And to almost wait for the sweet moment when gun control / mass shootings comes up.
Well, no, I don't think anybody.
You think that's just a coincidence?
It has to be just a weird coincidence, because, like, obviously, if you're doing that, you're not listening to what he's saying, right?
If you're a pro, you might have the mental space to be able to, and
only if you're a pro sitting there with him in your sights for like 10 minutes and you're waiting for the right moment to listen to what he's saying.
Or we haven't actually said this yet. Someone is so mind controlled that they can be triggered remotely to do it right now. Bang. They're ready. They know that it's going to happen. They know in their some kind of Figu Manchurian candidate state, and you need a trigger for the right moment that happens externally. Wild, but that is, the basis of MK Ultra.
Yeah, I guess there's enough kind of like circumstantial things that aren't directly connected to this that it's like, I'm not sure that we could say that, like, definitively, no, it's impossible.
Well, just look up Sirhan.
Exactly.
I mean, there's events like that in history, 2 or 3, JFK, Sirhan, MLK, those 3 in particular, and particularly with Sirhan on RFK, where Sirhan had no recollection of doing any shooting, and he's been consistent with that claim. He's still in prison, and he said that every time he's been asked in prison for the last, whatever it is, 60 years, 50 years, that he has no memory of being there at all. And it's also a matter of public record or part of the investigation that there were more shots fired than were in Sirhan's gun. They actually retrieved more bullet holes than were actually in his gun, than the gun could hold. And there's also the fact that Sirhan was in front of RFK, and RFK was shot behind the right ear.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact that a psychotherapist, whatever, who clinical hypnotherapist, went and proved that Sirhan was very susceptible or very easily hypnotized. He basically went into a cell and told him that he would spend a bit of time with him and convinced him that he was a monkey and that he would climb up the bars and kind of make monkey sounds up the bars of his cell. And he went ahead, and this clinical therapist, who's like on record having said this, that he did this, Sirhan did that, and then afterwards he had no recollection that he did it. He said, "What do you mean? I didn't get up there and do that." So
they could do that in 1968. It's 2025.
When you have all that information on the record, and exactly, and you know that it can be done. It's not Manchurian candidate. It's not necessarily MLK. You can call it MK Ultra, all that kind of stuff, but it is fairly normal. Like, you could even cite the example of like stage hypnotists. You know what I mean? You get people to do crazy things. There's obviously something going on there in terms of messing with people's their cognition and their awareness and changing of their brainwave patterns and stuff to get them into altered states where they can be given instructions to do things. And they've been experimenting with that for a very long time. And that, again, that's a matter of public record. That's not speculation. I don't think anybody with any reasonable person disagrees with that. So all you need now at this point then is someone in the government with a motivation to utilize those technologies and that kind of technology that has, or that kind of, manipulation of people's perception and behavior. Take it into the modern age, like you said, 2025, when you have much more technologically advanced ways of doing the same thing. I mean, there's stuff you can look up yourself about the ability to influence people's behavior and thought patterns, all that kind of stuff through microwave radiation directed at people's brains. I mean, that's something that's
it's so commonly known that the black guy, DeCarlos Brown or whatever his name was, who slashed the Ukrainian girl a few weeks ago in Charlotte, an audio's been leaked of him calling his sister, and she's like, "Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it?" And she's not believing him, but he's saying in his defense, oh, it was something they put in me. They put something in me that made me do it.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He has a kind of a glib but spontaneous thing of what'll I catch for something. Voices did it. Wasn't me. Everyone knows the trans shooter who shot the school in Minneapolis 3 weeks ago, also August. Assuming this is actually from his notes as a picture of himself, you know, self. It's weird. Self-portrait. You normally think face on. He's drawing a picture of himself. No, it's him drawing a picture of himself from behind, looking in a mirror, and there's a demon looking back at him. Possession. The only sticking point for someone would be to go, everyone's familiar with the notion of possession. Everyone refers to it. Even in our atheist secular age, people refer to it all the time. They entertain it as a serious thing. Possession, and it usually happens to crazy people, schizophrenics, and they're on meds and stuff. The only difference, the only thing that you're asking in addition here is it possible for people to replicate functionally what is otherwise a supernatural power? Have they acquired the technological means
to do what?
To trigger a crazy person to do something that's not them. That's not.
Well, the means to do that.
This technology from MIT can beam a voice right into your head. Yeah.
So do that often enough. Well, that's probably vanilla flavor stuff, the voices. But there's been plenty of shooters over the years who have shot up different places who have made that claim, or claims that fit with this. Basically, God told me to do it. The voices told me to do it. You know, and like you said, it's associated traditionally with schizophrenia, whatever, people hearing voices in their head. But the mechanism by which people, I mean, there's so much study being done on the human brain and all that kind of stuff in one particular area in terms of how to manipulate it. You look up military research and all that kind of stuff for battlefield stuff, but it's, you know, it's been going on for a very long time. There's obviously a mechanism from schizophrenics, for example, who are hearing voices in their heads. There's something within the brain that allows for those voices to be heard. So they do a bit of study and they figure out what parts of the brain are being activated or are working, how this actually happens neurologically when a schizophrenic hears voices in his head, and then they find out ways to mimic it or replicate it with external technology. So you have someone over a longer period of time hears a voice in their head telling them, kill Charlie Kirk, or Charlie Kirk's this, or Charlie Kirk's that, over and over and over again. Well, that's certainly going some way, going some distance along the path of actually getting someone to ultimately act on such an impulse, you know, or on that kind of suggestion, you know. And there's obviously different, like we mentioned with Sirhan, where you can not just beam voices into people's heads, but you can, if you have direct access to them, you can provoke or encourage in them beliefs or a certain kind of mental state where they will act out a particular behavior, you know, rather than just, they'll kind of play it out, if you know what I mean, or
they'll actually turn up, hold the gun, even point it,
and shoot and fire it. Sirhan fired it.
Okay, but missed.
Yeah, he did fire it all over the place. Didn't know where he was firing at. Yeah. And that was 60 years ago. So 50 years ago. So I'm just saying, the fact that if you look enough into this, you'll be able to convince yourself, you know, factually, based on hard evidence, that this kind of thing is certainly possible. It's certainly possible for someone to manipulate a susceptible person to go and do something that they wouldn't ordinarily have done or wouldn't choose to do themselves. So the only thing missing then is some group of people who would have this as an active policy of periodically going around finding individuals like this and getting them to do things that they ordinarily wouldn't do in order to achieve a certain outcome in the arena of social engineering or creating control of the population, really, when these people are doing this, decide that society or the population is not going in the right direction. Let's say it's not. People are becoming less compliant, less obedient. They're not listening to our directives anymore. They don't support Israel anymore. They're turning against Israel. They're starting to think they're even maybe starting to come together. They're starting to bridge divides. Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk, people like that are who are trying to bring people together left and right to the extent that they can. And we don't want people going in that direction, basically, because a society divided is much more easily controlled. So we want to keep society divided. So how do we do that? Well, we need to have some kind of spectacular, shocking assassinations or different events like that polarize people to stop them thinking rationally and in their own self-interest.
And you see it.
We want them thinking in our interest.
You see it in quite a number of the articles and tweets and videos from a lot of right-wing people who have said that that now that Charlie Kirk is dead, so is debate. So is it's like Elon Musk saying to Tommy Robinson, it's like, they want to kill you. It's time to fight or die. It's like that kind of thing where you're no longer talking to each other, but, riling you and your buddies up to, go kill some radical, or whoever you think is a radical FD. Then you are doing exactly the thing that they want you to do, which...
It makes you a very stupid person.
Yeah.
A very ignorant person, a person who has no curiosity, has no interest in actually thinking about the situation and saying, is this really the way society goes all the time? Is this really rational for human beings? The average person in society is most of them are rational people who will work in their own self-interest, and they realize, and they're fundamentally human beings are cooperative and want to cooperate with each other, and they all understand that, a country has to be united, at least on the basics. Let's say you can have differences, but on the basics, everybody should be united in order for the country to succeed and to be prosperous, and that benefits everybody. It's all self-interest stuff, and it's rational self-interest. So when you see that not happening, going extremely in the opposite direction, the fact that you don't posit that there might be somebody in position of power who actually wants that to happen, you don't even think about that and go down that road a little bit and investigate it. You just sit with, oh, look, it's the right versus left. You actually, like you said, you actually you indulge in and encourage that divisiveness and not question whether or not it's actually being forced upon you, and that you are now playing the role of a gullible fool. Yeah, you're a willing patsy in that respect. To me, that just is such a shocking lack of just basic intelligence or basic thinking or basic even curiosity, or don't know what you call it, just wondering, questioning, a basic lack of questioning, and an inability to even conceive like that whole thing, like. But we've talked about for a very long time, where people, the one thing that stops people going there is, quote unquote, they wouldn't do that. That inane answer to every conspiracy theory that you could ever put to anybody is that they wouldn't do that. So what you're saying is the government's out to get us. Never. I can never believe that. I would never go there. No fucking way ever. The government try and divide society, divide and conquer. Does that even exist? Divide and conquer? Who came up with that phrase anyway? It's stupid. It's not possible that the government would ever want to divide the population against them in order to protect themselves, because they can more easily control the population if they're divided again. Because once you're united, especially in the context of a government being very corrupt, if you've got a very corrupt government, well, sooner or later, if you're a rational member of that government, you realize, like, look, one thing we need to understand here is that as we continue in our corruption here, the people are going to suffer as a result of our corruption, and eventually they're going to maybe start going, I think the government's corrupt. And when that happens, we're in trouble. So what's the best way to stop that from happening? Because we want to continue on our corruption. So how do we keep the people from figuring out kind of uniting with us versus them attitude, you know. We have to stop that from happening, because then our little corruption game is over. So how do we stop that happening? Well, we got to keep them fighting with each other. Or keep them divided. We got to create a division, exacerbate it, make it worse and worse and worse, and we got to push that. So that theory is apparently dismissed out of hand, not even thought about, not even considered as a possibility, not even considered as a possibility.
But you know why? It's the very mechanism that a hypothetical they would be doing what they're doing. It's why they do it. You take the shot or commit the atrocity or have a patsy do it, whatever. It provokes emotional and herd instincts and reactions.
Right.
That's why they do it.
Yeah,
because they know in that moment, thinking and pausing is dropping off a cliff.
But all you have to do is be a very simple level 1 rational human being and furnish yourself with the awareness that is possible, that that's what they do, and at least have it as a possibility. So then when something happens and you see that what's happening right now actually fits with my theory, well, maybe I should take my theory more seriously now. At the very least, maybe I should hold off on responding in a herd mentality way, because I know, based on this schema or this kind of like this theory that I developed with some evidence for it, that that's the wrong thing to do. The wrong thing to do is react in a herd mentality way. I'm going to wait and not react in a herd mentality way, and I'm going to investigate more and see what happens. I'm going to continually observe and try and flesh out my theory with evidence until I can get to the point that it's not just a theory, it's a hypothesis.
But it's
it's not just a hypothesis, it's a theory, and it has a growing body of evidence to support it, until I get to the point where, look, I'm going to go with this one. If I have to choose between they would never do that, and yeah, they probably do that, and here's the evidence that they are doing it, and I can see that it's happening in real time now, well, I'm going to go with this one. I'm still not 100% sure, but I'm probably 80% sure of this one, and the more I increase in my conviction based on evidence for this theory, the less I'm inclined to believe that they would never do that.
Yeah.
But so it seems to me just very simple, logic, rational.
But it can also be a character thing too, where, like for me personally, I was surprised by how affected I was by this, even though. I mean, I had quite a bit of respect for Charlie and what he was doing and how he was able to do it. I didn't agree with everything that he said or did, but I appreciated a lot of what he did and, again, respected him for it. But I still found myself feeling more emotionally affected than I thought seemed reasonable to me, given that set of circumstances. Like, I've seen some of his videos. I've been, aware of him and kind of following him for like 10 years or so. But I wasn't watching his stuff on the regular like I do with Tucker or Candace. I didn't think that he had kind of like the eloquent way of really nailing down what's really going on in society, like we can. But I found myself really being affected by it, and I just was stopping to consider, like, hold on, I'm feeling very affected by this, more than seems reasonable considering the circumstances for me. Is this something that was kind of like engineered in me in some kind of way? So I took that as a possibility. But then what I was also going to say about the character situation is, if I'm in, and again, for me in that particular context, I'm feeling like overly emotional. Well, I don't want to respond in that anger. I don't want to.
Oh, that's shock, and that's still a shock, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say or do things that I will regret later, purely because I'm feeling a certain way. And
that's it's funny how that's like, again, that's very, very basic. Okay, a lot of people maybe you can cite all sorts of very basic, rational ways that human beings should act, and even kind of almost cliches about that have come down in human history as mores, if you know what I mean, or as axioms. Like, for example, in relationships, if you're having a fight, even with your wife, your husband, whatever, and you're angry, it's in pop psychology, right? It's super basic, right? It's like when you're super angry, the best thing to do is, if you're having a fight with your friend, your partner, whoever, you should take a moment, calm yourself down. If you need to, go, look, I'm kind of quite angry now. I'm going to go away and calm down and have a think about it, and then I'm going to come back and talk about it. Right? That's chapter 1 in how to resolve disagreements. So it's exactly the same thing. The basic idea that when your blood's up or when you're emotionally charged, you should not make a decision. It's like, you sleep on it. You heard sleep on it, right? Yeah. That's probably it's common today or whatever, but they probably were saying that in ancient Greece. Go and have just take your toga off and go back to the house. Go to the
get a massage in the
go to the hammam, get a massage in the sleep, and think about it tomorrow. So it's like the fact that so many people can't do that.
I think what he's saying though is that it shouldn't have been that intense for him.
I know.
He's not exactly. He doesn't know Charlie Kirk.
It's not like
I know he's saying but what I'm saying is, that's something else we can talk about. But it's just that idea is something that is apparently lost on so many people. A very, very basic idea is lost. So many people don't have that kind of personal insight or ability to reflect on their own thought patterns or their own impulses. For a moment, they don't have that self-control, let's say, and it's like level 1, like it's entry level self-control, doesn't mean it's easy to do, but the information that you should do it has been around for eons. It's been around for all of human history. Neanderthals were probably telling each other to do that, in their grunts, ugh, grunt, grunt, grunt. That meant just go and sleep on it. Don't react right now.
Yeah, the first one who figured it out, it must have been like mind blown.
Yeah. He's like, I know he hit you in the head with a club, but don't react in the moment. Don't.
Joe don't have to react when angry. Oh.
Joe turned other cheek. Oh.
Well, there you go. Charlie Kirk talking about turn the other cheek and all that kind of stuff, So, but yeah, on the fact that it had to those who, because again, we have to admit that probably 98% of the world's population had no response to this whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's always a good thing to remind yourself as well, just to get yourself out of the hyper focus on a particular area of the globe. The vast majority of people out there had no idea who Charlie Kirk was, didn't even heard on the news a day later that some dude was shot in America. And they're like, that happens all the time, big deal, What's the big hubbub about, So, but the fact that it did have that effect on people who are paying attention, who knew him and all that kind of stuff, it's because you're dialed into that dynamic, let's say, or what's going on. You almost like have skin in the game because you're invested in it. So it has more of an impact because you're invested in it. And I think it just, but maybe there's something more to it. There's the graphic nature of it, like the public nature of it. And I thought about it, like, I was like, imagine
coming the day after that other video.
Well, I did a mental exercise of imagining if I had just heard that Charlie Kirk had been shot on the street, outside his house or walking down the street or something, and there was no video of it. It still would have been not quite as, but equally impactful. The graphic nature of it added to that, but without that, it would have only dialed it down a little bit. I think it still would have had the effect of people being quite shocked and outraged because of
It's the political nature of it. He was giving a talk and throwing out MAGA hats. He just sat down.
Yeah.
Beginning of a new tour he's giving over the next 3 months.
It's not like you're trying to mug him and you don't know who he is.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't know who he is.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to steal his wallet or his phone and things go sideways. It's like, no, he's giving the talk at his, at his little rally. You know who he is and you know what you're doing when you're doing this. There's no like accidental about it in that sense. So it's that premeditation. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's that. And then there's the context. I don't know. Maybe there's some other, just a feeling that people people haven't thought about it, sat down and took a good hard look at what's going on in the US and in the West in general, but particularly maybe in the US and just the state of, the state of the world really affecting everybody and the role that America is playing and the hopey change that was meant to come with Trump and all that kind of stuff and how that hasn't really manifested and, Israel and just the sense among people who, particularly in the West, I think, who are increasingly aware that things aren't right. Things are going wrong. We're on a bad path. They're getting that from the media a lot as well. But it's obviously true. When the media says it, it's true. At least in that sense, that they're reflecting something that's actually going on because generally they like to encourage negative things in people, But I think many people in the West, if they're asked and have been asked, they think the world's going in the right direction. They'll say no. And people in America, things aren't good. There's a lot of shootings, a lot of killing, a lot of stabbings and shootings, and a lot of division among the two political divides, let's say. So it happening in that context, it was like, oh, things just got worse. It was already bad, but now it's just been made a lot worse because it's taken it to the next level of openly shooting your political opponents. That hasn't really happened.
It almost happened last year
with Trump. That would have been a big one. There was little ones, like there was that senator. Was she a senator or a congresswoman who was shot a few years ago? But that was very quickly covered up and stuff.
There was a hitman who took out 2 local politicians in Minnesota recently.
Right.
Very dodgy. No real follow-up to what the fuck happened there. That was professional hit. There was he a senator or a rep killed by Scalise? Is that his name? Killed in DC. That was political, so it was intentional targeting.
I think,
but this is the most intense, high-profile one.
Yeah, and who it was and what he kind of stood for. But to the extent that he was trying to, bridge the divide and all that kind of stuff, it's like, well, this is just a real blow to that, to the hope of things getting better.
To the hope, but something I think opened the eyes to people to make the culture war, in quotes, more real, to bring it home. Was anger and backlash, obviously, at it happening, but also in the subsequent reaction of a lot of lefties, libs, including some very high-profile people. Rejoicing. So it's not just as simple as, they've increased polarization. I think it's clear to us the vast majority of people are either pro-Trump or pro-MAGA or pro-unity or pro-peace. They're basically essentially conservative. But they're starting to realize just how far gone or how different so many millions of people around them are. That's new to people.
That brought it
most
out.
people assume everyone has a soul, everyone can be fixed, everyone can be debated over and won. So those rightoids saying, no, you can't, the debate's over, they're actually right. Although where they go with that realization next is the scary question. What you got to realize is that there are tens of millions of people in any given population
are not like
who when they see the shot fired and the blood, they don't have disgust, they don't have shock, they don't have, that is just awful. They actually smile.
Yeah, but the big question
gives pleasure inside.
Yeah, but
when they see it,
there's 2 things there that it's like you could almost say that the real negative impact or the real goal, let's say, if there was a goal from this assassination of Charlie Kirk, wasn't his assassination in and of itself, because it's not like he was a voice and all that kind of stuff, but it's not like there wouldn't be someone to take his place. But
it's not the same motive as trying to kill Trump. It's political, but it's different.
No, but it's not just to take him; it's take him out, or not even. That's not even the priority. The priority was maybe to create what you just described afterwards, which was to make conservatives, let's say Charlie Kirk supporters, etc., conservatives aware of just how evil the other side is because of the way they responded to it. Because if everybody had responded, if all the lefties had responded saying, look, this is really bad, it's one thing to disagree, but we should not be killing each other. If everybody said that on the left, it would have taken a lot of the fire out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody could have agreed to let it go, and that was it, and never again. But the fact that it exposed all these supposedly all these people who are crazy lefties who just want to kill, let's kill more, let's do it all. But the question there is, how many are those people? What number of people? I mean, again, this is a disproportionate. You get a disproportionate or a false perception of
online.
Exactly. Of you can extrapolate incorrectly that there's millions of these lefties who all want to kill every Charlie Kirk there is on the right. And it's like, really, how many? I mean, people say, I've been seeing so many people doing that, but go and count them. And what have you got? Maybe 100, 200, 300 people? Divide America down the middle. There's about 400 million people in America. Apparently, real numbers are 400 million.
That's part of the problem.
Including the immigrants. So 200 million people on each side, let's say, just to be simple. So there's 200 million lefties, and a few hundred rejoiced at the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Are you going to extrapolate out then and say, yeah, well, that's what they all think? Or are you going to just be kind of strict about it and go, well, only the ones who think that are the ones who said it? Only the ones who really think that because they actually went public and actually said something about it. The rest of them are actually people who are still decent enough, people who don't agree with that kind of thing and aren't supporting the idea of let's have a political
reckoning.
Yes. So again, you got to think about all these things, but not a lot of thinking going on. Somebody in the chat room just said hi, welcome, because we titled the show Charlie Kirk, Assassination, Charlie Kirk and the End of the World. It's eagerly waiting the end of the world.
Subject to change.
There's an interesting. I'll just send Scotty so you can look at it here. There's a girl on. Somebody brought her to my attention. There's a woman on X called her handle on X is just BX.
I started watching,
and she's done some.
That was crazy.
She's just done a short doc. They're 25 minutes each, and there's 5 parts to it, or whatever. But it mainly focuses on. That's her Twitter account. And the little documentaries are in her feed there. But she talks about these people that she came across in one way or another, including by contacting someone who was supposedly working for US military intelligence and who was investigating this herself. She was this woman she was talking to or had contact with over the past few years was involved in ISIS, trying to figure out where ISIS cells and all that kind of stuff, and figure out where they were, that kind of stuff. But she ended up, as part of that, part of her job basically was uncovering all these different groups online that seem to be spread across the world, essentially, including in Ukraine and the Azov battalion. But basically, groups of people. Nominally, they're just young. A lot of them not necessarily young, but men. Maybe women too, but men who in chat rooms and different forums and stuff who are all these Tyler Robinson type, supposedly, right? Disaffected people who their attitude is, look, this country / world is going down the tubes. We need to just
help it. That's a far right.
We need to get it moving. Yeah.
Philosophy.
Well, but it's also an anarchist take. And
okay.
What are anarchists? You know what I mean? So
I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically burn it all down because it's all going there anyway, and let's help it along. And therefore, they would encourage kind of mass shootings and online trying to encourage people to go and they start off trying to groom people online. These are supposedly ordinary people trying to groom people online, particularly young people. To self-harm, manipulate them, get images of them, pictures of them, and then blackmail them into doing bad things and evil things for kicks, because they're sadistic kicks. But then there seems to be a concerted effort to try and
track it.
Pick individuals who then you can incite to go and commit atrocities, go and commit mass shootings or whatever.
Yeah, they have a term for them.
And well, the whole thing is called accelerationist. Is that's
general,
a general term, yeah.
But they have a term for people they've managed to select ofters,
opfors.
Yeah.
But this is something that the intel agencies, or some branch of intel agencies in the West and different countries, would be all over.
Yeah,
from the get-go, because it's their job to, because the whole thing went online. It used to be with COINTELPRO and stuff, it was just get into these local chapters, local groups, physical groups, and infiltrate them in that way. Or for FBI terror plots, it's actually contact individuals, befriend them and get them to agree to do something stupid.
I only got 10 minutes into that.
But online, it's very active as well, because a lot of stuff is happening online, especially with younger people. You're not going to go around and meet all these people individually, but you're going to groom them all.
The informants may never actually have to meet.
Right.
I was wondering, because I only got 10 minutes into the first one, and the way that she was describing her interactions with this person, Jade, who like you were saying, was looking into these forums and the things that they were doing, and started to put some pieces together, presenting it to people, saying, this is what's going on, this is really bad, we should do something about it, getting stonewalled, having her work stolen, misappropriated, pushed into and sidelined and sidetracked. It's like I mean, again, I only got 10 minutes in, so does she draw the obvious conclusion that...
I don't think she does. I mean, she does hint at it, but I mean, the obvious conclusion is that this is something that people in positions of power are actually running. They're running these groups. They're actually going on to different, like Discord or wherever, different groups on the internet, and setting up. I mean, she mentions one called Incel. It's incel.is or incel.io, which is an official forum for incels, right? Involuntary celibates, and these would be your classic disaffected
misanthropes
who think it's all they can't get
rigged against
they can't get a girlfriend, so
that's how it begins. They go in with that complaint, but they come out like,
but if you don't get a girlfriend, then you're gonna burn the world down.
Satanists.
So then it goes into, and a lot of them are pedophiles and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, the whole thing is extremely murky and,
did you notice,
disgusting, that kind of stuff that's going on online, and it's being exploited by people in positions of power, it seems, in order to just extract as much suffering and as much dysfunction and as many people as possible on the internet. But also they're using it to groom individuals in order for various different purposes.
Oh yeah. Did you notice? I watched the first one. Did you notice the Jade Parker, the Intel operative turned whistleblower turned, she's disappeared now. She was tracking Atomwaffen. Does that ring a bell?
No.
So Atomwaffen has popped in the news a little bit. I've talked about it in the show before. This is a on its explicit ideological banner up front, it looks like a neo-Nazi group in the United States with decentralized cells working in the background. They've caught a few of them, put a few on trial. Some are pending trial. I think some have been convicted. But Atomwaffen is, obviously that's a Nazi term, accelerationist, same philosophy, same background as the other types of groups you're talking about. They're the ones who are now being actually caught in a couple of cases, being blamed for the multiple mystery sniper / sabotage attacks on the United States power grid over the last 10 years. And of course, you remember the first one that began in Metcalfe, California, when they absolutely found no one, but knew they were pro snipers and they'd shot up this power station, knocking out power. And that some investigation that was publicized said that they must have had, according to the lead investigator, inside knowledge of the blueprints of the facility. Well, in subsequent kind of copycat / mimicking events since then, it's been pinned in public narrative. Like I said, people don't really know about this yet. It's like it's in reserve. This is yet to come. And you're going to hear about it. It's coming. So this is a part of the accelerationist, and you stamped all over it as far as we're concerned with what we know about how these things happen, is that accelerationism is being encouraged by the powers that be to control the outcomes of the very overall macro social situation that's going on now, which you brought up, which is that what should / could realistically and logically happen as this shit keeps ongoing is that most people just go, you know what, I'm out. I'm done. It's fallen to shit. Fair play to Trump, he tried, etc. I'm done. A mass leaving of the psychological plantation. Well, accelerationism and pushing it and fomenting it is to keep you engaged. Don't fucking leave. No. We want you engaged. We want to farm you for... If the far right LARPers are farming you for keks and trolls, you've got real psychos in the background that are farming you to keep your life and your life's blood, going for a job, paying your taxes, keep you invested in keeping this thing going.
Exactly. You want to keep engaged in a divisive, pointless war that that everyone's going to lose. They're trying to create people like them. Basically, they're trying to turn as much of the population as possible onto a mindset that mimics their own mindset, which is like just dark, dystopian, and nihilistic. And that's why I say, once those people push it that far in that direction, the only rational response is to walk away, like you said, disengage from the psychology of it. Decide in your mind you're not playing any more part. To the extent that everybody and anybody is actually an active participant by the thoughts that they're putting out there, or the way they're engaging with it psychologically. Just cut that off. And you can pay attention to it. That doesn't mean you can't pay attention to it, but you're getting outside the walls. And you're only looking in the window from now, And
instead,
that's the best way to make it fall apart,
Seeing the blood coming out of Kirk's neck and going, right, that's it. I'm instrumentalized.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Don't be Elon Musk, basically.
Yeah.
For all his big brains, But yeah, the one thing I wanted to say, in terms, because the reason I know that all this stuff is so poignant to me is because, and I've written about it and we talked about it before, but I kind of cut my teeth on all this stuff from growing up in Northern Ireland, and knowing it's kind of weird that where I grew up, all this stuff that I'm talking about that is in the domain of conspiracy theories is stuff that two 60-year-old grandmothers on the street doing their shopping would be talking about in very mundane terms, as in they know it because they know that's what was happening, so it's kind of weird, but anyway, that's why it's so kind of why I have been particularly in the past anyway, particularly interested in and just looking at how it works, and one example, when I was talking earlier about the way they have to infiltrate groups and all that kind of stuff, that happened with the British government infiltrating nationalist group, Irish nationalist groups in Ireland, like the IRA and etc. in Northern Ireland in the 60s and 70s and 80s, whatever. And they would put their agents in there who would then become, the sworn allegiance to the IRA, whatever. They'd be sheep dipped and become members of the IRA, but they're actually working for the British government. They're a sworn enemy. And but they would work. One of the things that they would generally have to do is that once you're inside one of these groups, in order to gain some traction and get, be able to insinuate yourself into it effectively, you had to prove your mettle, basically, that you were a true kind of soldier for the cause, that you were committed to it. And that means that you have to actually, in many cases, you'd have a British military asset or agent working actively for the British inside the IRA, who would have to go and shoot a British soldier to prove. And it was seen as a necessary sacrifice in order to get him ingratiated with the group.
Blooded.
Well, he would have to prove himself, prove his mettle, basically.
You're blooded, they say. It's like when you join a gang, here's a gun, go and shoot someone.
You have to prove that you're committed, and that would have been approved. Like him going and shooting a British soldier would have been approved by the British, and they actually would have in the operation now by the IRA with the British soldier effectively carrying out the IRA's activities, he would have obviously, he's reporting back to the British all the time, and he's telling that, okay, the plan is to go and shoot a British soldier, and then the British military would actually facilitate him to go, him and a few others, to go, and they would open the way to allow him to go and kill a British soldier. So you see, once you go down that rabbit hole and you realize how it actually works, and it's not that even that it's a rabbit hole where it's like, oh my God, this is mind bending. You can see how absolutely rational it is.
Yeah.
From a completely cold, calculated, this is what we have to do in order to win. You can see how it makes complete sense. And so when knowing that, and then seeing it happen in many other places by the British and Americans and others around the world since then, when I hear Israelis seeing it, like I just spot it like immediately, like when I hear, it's just like when I see people, if I suggest that to them and they go, they would never do that. I'm like, you're so far out of left field. Like, you just don't live in reality at all. Like, you know what I mean? And it's sad, because if you had, all you have to do is just be exposed to it and realize that, and not only, it's not that you're being mind programmed to believe in a conspiracy theory. All you have to do is think about it. Listen to the rationale. And, in theory, you could have some member of the British government come and tell you, yes, this is exactly what we do. What would they say then? You would never do that, would you? Yes, we would.
But
I just said I did.
Tell me that you wouldn't.
Okay, you're right.
All right, I wouldn't.
Joshing you.
So, yeah. So when you have that kind of context to these kind of things, like the Charlie Kirk shooting and stuff, it just puts a totally different blush on it, and you don't look at it in that way. And the reality is that there's many politicians like Kash Patel, God love him, him and his wandering eyes and stuff. I mean, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Maybe, at least he's not as aware as he should be. But even he now, and members of the FBI and people in government, a lot of congressmen, all that kind of stuff, when they see an event like Charlie Kirk shooting, they know.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? They know, because I mean, they, at least, the very least, most of them will have the same information we have and the same awareness we have, and they know immediately that this is not what it appears to be. But they're not going to tell anybody, because they can't. Because, well, Israel. No. Oh, there's blackmail. There's blackmail involved.
It's much more prosaic. When you saw Kash Patel standing at that podium for the press conference, he's surrounded by people who are in on it,
and he's not.
Or
and he only just
at least
arrived.
Several of them.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. And Kash Patel's just fresh in.
So his eyes are wandering left and right, because Jesus Christ, I know what this guy to my right is involved, or maybe he directly involved in this, or I know what he's done in other contexts. I've had plenty of messages saying he's literally surrounded, like hemmed in. He's not ideologically hemmed in at a distance in the abstract. If I say something now, I might lose my job 6 months from that. He's fucking hemmed in by complete psychos who are doing this day in, day out.
Yeah, but it's so obvious. Maybe people just don't think, but they think that when Kash Patel gets, director of the FBI, yeah, he's gonna drain the FBI swamp. It's like, you don't realize, look, this is a guy who has no real history of being in law enforcement, or he's an internet kind of person, for the most part. And he walks in and sits in the office of the director of the FBI, and he has no fucking idea how anything works. He has no idea. He doesn't walk in there and start going, okay, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this. At the very least, he can start asking. Like, the director has to ask all these other career FBI agents from different departments in the FBI, ask them, can I please have the information about that? Yeah, well, actually, we don't have those files. Yeah, they got burned in a flood.
Oh no! I think it was a Christmas office party last year.
Yeah, I think they got burned, because, just think about it. I mean, it's the same as Trump. You saw Trump walking into the White House in 2016. I'm the president. I'm the chief executive. I'm going to exercise the powers of the chief executive. And it's like, no, you're not. You're going to get hamstrung for 4 years, and you're going to do fuck all, because you don't run the government at all, in any way, shape, or form. And there you're talking about deep state, but no, there can't be a deep state. Well, tell me who runs the government in between administrations? Who ran the government during Trump's first administration when all he was doing was fighting court cases? Who?
Jews.
That's antiseptic. Yeah, so when we talk about Israel and the deep state, it's very hard to separate the two because they are separate in one sense. I think Israel has its own agenda to control America for pure power, because they have captured the American government, the American political system, the Israelis. But then the question now is, who are the Israelis? Because are they the Israeli Americans, the Israeli first generation Americans who are born and bred Americans but who are Jews? Who are they? Are they deep state or are they Jews? Are they Israelis?
Isn't Benjamin Netanyahu born in the US?
He was, yeah.
I know his grandfather's from Poland, but
yeah,
isn't he US born?
Sounds right.
But all those people,
he was on file. He was actually
who
a
are they
US
serving?
Agent.
They're serving Israel. They're serving their own interests, their own drive for power and control, and they've hitched their wagon to the power that is the American establishment. That's where they see the gold is, where they can get as much power and control as possible. And Israel's interests are, well, it's interesting that Charlie Kirk accusing the Israelis or the Israeli lobby or Jews within Israel of facilitating the mass illegal immigration to the USA. That's an attempt to divide America. Clearly, in the political context, where you have a large number of Americans, probably a majority, who don't want that, but you have Jews trying to bring them in. But by definition, is going to create tension within, because there's a big section of the population who also loves immigrants.
To do as Kevin MacDonald said in the 90s, to water down the white European.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
So it's very hard. You can see how it's very hard to tease out those Israeli/Jewish interests in American, Israeli American, Jewish American interests, and pure American non-Jewish, non-American Jewish,
very hard.
Christian American, Jewish American, both in positions of power. Any difference in terms of their goals of dividing American society, keeping the people divided from each other in order that they can continue to suck off the system, and increase it in their own personal power. And it's tied to geopolitics as well, obviously, with Israel and the Middle East and all.
Yeah. If there is a distinction worth making, an American patrician class that is in any way worth distinguishing from the Israel First lobby and its interests.
Charlie Kirk was a representative of them.
Okay, then you can see an interest an interest that they have in being content with everyone turning towards blaming Israeli control of our country, because they're like, oh, good, because the American establishment in general has shown that. Oh, awesome. Blame Russia, blame China, blame the external. Don't come to us. Go blame them. So right there, you can see a motive for that. So we keep that in mind. But
you mean they're going to sacrifice to Israel eventually?
It's always possible.
It's always possible. Israel, huh?
It's an historical blame the Jews. It is a really, really old tactic.
Very convoluted.
I wonder though, I don't have the quote to hand, but I'm going to...
What a tangled web we weave when we first practice to
RFK, not RFK Jr., we know his statement about America's geopolitical interests in perceiving and keeping Israel as our unsinkable aircraft carrier. His father said something similar, which is grotesquely ironic given what happened to him. But he visited Israel in his 20s. I think at this point they were not yet an independent state, but there's diary entries that were included in a book later by some, I don't know when it was published, but it was about his life and assassination. And the diary entry I read was he's in Israel. He's amazed by Jewish industriousness and them bloody Arabs. Why did they get all the oil? And it's in America's interest to keep a toehold here in the Middle East and to advance the Jewish interests in Palestine. His father articulated that as well.
Of course, but it's obvious that it was.
But it's obvious, but then this tiger by the tail is also really bad for the US.
They didn't know just how ambitious the Israelis were. I think that was their problem. They didn't realize how ambitious the Israelis were. The Israelis, and how paranoid they are. How they're, to whatever extent they believe it, whatever, some of them use it obviously, but a lot of them are very paranoid because it's part of their entire culture. They're fed it from the cradle to the grave, is that they're a persecuted people, that they'll all, like Benjamin Netanyahu was using that as a response, basically. They're always gonna come and try and get us. These he didn't say guys, whatever, but that's what he was saying in response to the accusations online that Israel was responsible for killing Charlie Kirk. He's like referring back to the freaking Middle Ages and blood libel, and
it's a hell of an answer.
That's in his head, and that just comes off. It's on the tip of his tongue all the time, and so it's the same for most Jews, and particularly in the establishment and all that kind of stuff. But they use that, I mean, it's just power politics. It's like it's human nature in a certain sense. Obviously the negative side of human nature, but the Israeli Jews, the Jews who founded the state of Israel and all that kind of stuff, realized very quickly. Well, they were given a lot of support and help, and America saw them as their unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East. But with that paranoia of those guys eventually turn against us, history shows, and how it's inculcated into every Jew to believe that, they weren't going to just sit back and allow themselves to be used by America as a garrison in the Middle East to control the resources. They're like, no. They turned around and grabbed America by the cojones and put on a vice-like grip and said, we're never letting go. None of that, but it's payback time, If we're your garrison, we're not going to be your lackey garrison here. We want more. We want it all. Or maybe more generously, you could say that they just were afraid of being ultimately cast aside when they were no longer necessary, and they weren't going to wait till that happened. So they felt the need to infiltrate and inculcate themselves into American politics and control American politics, so that American politics and American politicians, American governments would never cast Israel to the winds when they were no longer needed. And from there it just spirals, and then they become obsessed with the power that they have.
Spirals. There's like it's so strong and so public now, so in your face. Like normies are going, this is a good. It's so total. Before Wednesday, I was watching the sequence of events of what Israel did, and I had in mind also their very uncovered assassination of Yemen's prime minister last week. Their power is so total. There doesn't seem to be an earthly force that can stop them. So if they're paranoid and ambitious, we don't know how big their ambitions are. Most assume their ambitions end with the Israeli flag supposedly symbolizes the two rivers from the Nile to the Euphrates, and geographically the ambitions stop there, but we don't know. Everyone's guessing.
Pathological.
Where does it end? There isn't a power on earth that seems willing or able.
No. Until
the Russians know, the Chinese know, the Americans know, the Arabs know, the Europeans know.
Right.
The only
it's
logical
so fucking total at this point.
Extension of, or like the logical extension of where does it end with the paranoia? Well, the obviously end is we control the world.
Yeah,
that's the obvious end to where they have to take it. Because them just...
At the moment, it's just noises, but there's a bill on the books as a result of Kirk's assassination to start confiscating passports of Americans, not visitors, Americans, for criticizing Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, you see them online now. I said the first day was like I saw a big, holy shit, Israel. And 2 days later, I'm seeing a lot of pushback from the influencing types, and they're making lists. They're making lists of people to target. Not to target. Some of them implied that Candace Owens, you're next. So that's like a death threat. But I mean more like lists of people who need to be
cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't end up ruining the world. Those people end up being their own, creating their own undoing, being their own, the agent of their own destruction, of their own downfall. You know, it does have a.
At the moment, though, it's looking like it's going to take something super destructive, like revolutionary turnover, for that to happen, and in more than one place at once. It's so, you know what I mean, that speaks to the totality of it. The revolution, say you're concerned about cost of living and your own country and your own community, and you're feeling like we need to, like the Brits, we need to take this country back from Starmer. I'm not sure where I'm going with that. Anyway, it's just, it's a pretty, I'm feeling pretty,
Antiseptic?
No, not even. No, not even. I'm actually resigned. It's more like a black pill stance. I'm resigned to, I think since October 7th, I've steadily gone through, don't worry, Hezbollah's got this. They showed Israel in 2006 and they're decapitated. Oh, fuck. Okay, Hezbollah's out. Don't worry. Iran's got this, and Iran's control. Well, that remains to be seen, but it looks like they're contained.
There'll be more.
Don't worry. Something else happened, and then they just assassinate one leader. Oh, okay. And then next week another leader. It just is endless. There is no fucking. I don't see any end to that. Except one that requires mass revulsion. But that means you're toppling not just a policy of being pro-Israel, you're toppling the whole edifice. You end up, it's such a trap because you end up having to be some kind of accelerationist in your mind anyway, burn it all down. You and the left, everyone. There's no other.
No, you don't have to be an accelerationist. You can just step back, like I said, step outside the room and watch it happen. Keep things under a careful watch, but watch the show type thing. Because what else is there to do? It gets so clown shoesy and so, like I said, anti-intellectual, irrational, exaggerated.
It descends into farce.
Divisive. It's almost a farce. Like, who would continue to engage in that? It's like clown show, clown shoes, clown show. It's like someone going to the circus to watch a clown show and actually and thinking it's real. And getting emotionally invested in what that one clown did to the other. It's like, dude. But it's much worse than that, obviously, because a clown show would just be funny, But this is just like a dystopian clown show, and it's like believing that it's something that you actually have any way of actually contributing, directly contributing usefully to or positively to. It's not like you can't.
There might have been a time in the good, you don't anymore. Look how much PMA positive mental attitude Americans put into getting Trump elected the first time, just getting over the finish line because they tried to rig it against him, but there wasn't enough. Hamstringing, pushing him through that one, getting pushed back where it's rigged against him flagrantly, and then doubling down and being super committed again to getting him in again. And now he's in again, and all the books, the whole America First agenda is actually shelved. Everything is Israel first. And people are going, what the fuck? What are you supposed to do? They're trying, but maybe they have to give up trying.
Yeah. Walk away.
Like we saw Blumenthal.
Join the vast majority of ordinary human beings who just pay no attention to it as well. I mean, I'm not saying that, but like that's kind of like the walking away. Like it's like when I say walk away, I'm talking about all these people who are like actively, you know, like working themselves up and posting on online and going to marches and all this kind of stuff. Those people should just stop doing that, you know, I think. Although, you know, that's ideally, let's say, but it doesn't really relate to them, you know. It's people are going to do what's in them to do.
Yeah.
And without people doing that, there wouldn't really be any show, you know. Or the show might come to an end in a different way, probably in a better way. But it seems that it's set on a course where people are going to go down fighting, whatever. It's going to be as divisive as it possibly can. And maybe that is the lesson. And also in that is the reason why you should actually take a step back and watch it. Because it's in the watching of that show that you actually learn the most, you know, that you'll actually get as much understanding about the whole situation rather than being in the middle of the fray. You don't really know what's going on. You're super hyper focused on one particular issue, you know, when it is all clearly connected in a certain sense, you know what I mean? It's like not everywhere around the globe, but like you notice like different things happening all at the same time, you know, things going off, popping off here and there. And there seems to be that there's some kind of a global view to these things, or a global dynamic to these things. And you're not going to be able to get that bird's eye global view if you're very hyper focused on one issue, like those immigrants who have been put in that hotel in my English town. I'm going to go to the march every Saturday to get those people out of that hotel. And I'm going to put so much energy into that, I'm not actually going to notice anything else that's going on, you know. So I suppose we should be thankful that people do that, because they're the ones who actually produce the show. But I'm not saying we should be like I think it still is the majority of people who aren't doing any of that, aren't going to any protests, don't actually have social media of any kind except WhatsApp or Facebook to talk about their lunch and stuff, aren't activists in any way, and just are still living a normal life. I'm not saying you should be like those people, because they're not paying attention to anything. But that doesn't mean that you should be hyper-focused, like I said, on one particular issue. There's a third option, let's say, where you can, like, we're still contributing and we're still have a little input here and there, and we do a show, we talk about it, we keep ourselves informed, but more than anything else, we watch it all happening in as broad a way as possible and try and understand the whole shebang, as opposed to, you know, having tunnel vision on any one thing, you know. Don't be like Elon Musk. That's the opposite of what everybody's more like. Everybody probably, a lot of people in America are probably told, can't you be more like Elon Musk? Can't you have your own SpaceX and your own Tesla? It's like, nah. The way his brain is working, I don't think so.
Why can't you just be on ketamine all the time like Elon Musk?
Why can't you work 16-hour days on ketamine and take us all to Mars?
Well said. Were there any more comments? We don't really see the comments refreshing. Did something happen there?
No one's been commenting.
No, come on.
They just have nothing to say.
That. I think it froze at the start of the show, at least from what we see. We still see introductions.
Disappeared.
Normally by now we have a couple of trolls, lots of slaps on the back, cool, and some good questions. No?
There's 112 people listening. So there should be more comments, but maybe not.
No, the actual list of the comment page, which I'm looking at, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 comments.
You guys are no good at commenting. I'm not going to thank you for commenting today, except the 7 people who did.
Oh no, there's. I'm looking at YouTube, and I'm looking at the chat, and there's quite a few people
commenting.
Yeah.
So it's something between YouTube and Restream then, probably. Aha.
I thought so.
Okay, well, we'll thank them for commenting.
Well, thank you for the
read
comments.
Us out some
we
good
can't read.
Any questions?
You got any good ones there? Not you. The
No.
comments.
Are there good comments here?
Did somebody ask a question?
Any question?
Read our comments, Adam.
Read our. Seems like a very heavy subject.
It
Yes,
is
correct.
Correct. Paul says steak knife.
Yes, exactly. I know what he's talking about.
So do I.
Let's see. Lodestone accelerators believe that if they create the right amount of evil, that a portal will open and allow a certain demon to take power, and they will become a part of a galactic core.
Who will?
Accelerators.
Accelerators.
Yeah, the accelerationists.
Okay.
They're going to open a portal.
According to video 5, according to Lodestone.
Will it be a Jewish portal? I mean, the demon, will the demon be Jewish, or will he be
Nazi?
A Nazi? Or will it be just...
That's a good question. Lodestone, is this...
Straight up MAGA.
Is this a MAGA demon, or is this a demon of Polish origin?
Is it an antiseptic demon? What, are there any others? No questions, no?
Let's see. There's somebody saying, has anyone seen the guy up close to Charlie that looks like he pulled a gun?
That's people.
That's after the fact.
That aren't there.
No, that seems to be the only one. Okay.
All right, Adam, give us your joke.
I've already forgotten it.
Come on. You've already forgotten it? Didn't you?
Well, there was one.
The antiseptic one?
I forgot the antiseptic one. So I've got another one.
Go on.
All right. So a moth walks into a podiatrist's office, and he starts telling the podiatrist about the general malaise in his life and how his children don't respect him and how his wife is considering leaving him and how he's just unsure of what to do with his life because he's past middle age now and hasn't really accomplished anything. And he goes on, and the podiatrist is like, this is all very terrible, but I'm a podiatrist. Why did you come here? And the moth says, because the light was on.
Oh,
that's terrible. That's worse than my joke.
That's bad. It's so bad it's worthy of a newsreel joke. Well,
yeah,
it was adapted from oh god,
I've heard a version of it.
Yeah,
because I like
Norm Macdonald.
Yeah,
I thought so.
I ripped it.
My therapist,
good comic.
My therapist says I have a preoccupation with vengeance. We'll see about that.
Dun dun dun.
Priest, a rabbi, and a vicar walk into a bar. The barman says, "Is this some kind of joke?" Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so you got 3 jokes there. Y'all should feel spoiled with 3 horrible jokes.
There's
not just
lots
one,
of laughter.
3 horrible jokes. Yeah, so that's what's going on as far as we're concerned. There's other stuff that we didn't talk about, but it's getting kind of late. Ukraine, yeah. Drones in Poland. We talked about that. Poland, Romania, just today, last night, Romania. That's either the UK's doing it to try and provoke, or it's Russia actually doing it, going with some kind of plan,
freaking them out,
trying to draw them in or get them to
there's been
respond in some way.
The French sent jets to Poland.
Yeah,
the Poles sent 40,000 troops to the border of Belarus.
It could be the Russians trying to give them enough rope to hang themselves with.
Maybe.
Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, we're going to leave it there for this week, folks. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, listening, commenting, and laughing at our crap jokes. We'll be back next week with another show on whatever hilarious stuff has been going on between now and then in the great freak show that is Planet Earth in 2025. So until then, stay safe and smell the flowers.
See you
Talk
next
to you
week.
later.
Bye.
Can't stop the signal now.